Yeah, man, whatever you want to talk about. Current events, whatever.
Politics. I'm just kidding.
We both stay away from that.
Yeah. It's probably a good idea. Yeah, man, we kind of just keep it casual. It's 11:10 right now, so we'll shoot for like 11:30-ish, 11:35.
Yeah.
Okay.
Love that I can decline a call from my phone on my watch.
You
Yeah.
can? Wow, you are fancy.
I just put mine on Do Not Disturb, otherwise it's going to keep going off.
I should check mine. 'Cause I'm getting calls off the charts today. Can you see my black eye? Is it visible? In the,
No. Your wife did a good job. with
Yeah,
it.
you're good.
she painted it up.
You want some makeup?
No, she spackled me up this morning already. So
What are you getting in street fights? Where do you get a black eye
I
from?
wish it was something that cool. No, I just walked into an open cabinet door.
You got to come up with a better story than that, man.
I know.
Come on.
Yeah, I got to bruise up my knuckles. And
Yeah.
look like I mixed
Say
it
you-
up with
By three
somebody.
guys.
You fought off 6 dudes and saved a puppy or something, you know?
Right.
All right. So what's going on, fellas? Let's dive right in.
Let's dive right in. It's a Friday.
Yeah, it's a Friday.
It's beautiful out. It's Michigan soup. Welcome.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having us.
Yes, thanks for being here. I know I wanted to get you guys on here because you got a little bit of an exciting announcement as well. So kind of share what you guys have got in the works and what's coming up.
Yeah, so we've had a couple different iterations of our podcast that we've done over the last 4 years, 5 years
4
we've been
years,
doing
yeah,
it,
at least.
and so it's changed names once, and so we've sort of got away from it, but we're going back into it, and I feel like the new name of our podcast sort of reflects what it's going to be about. So we're officially announcing the name. It's going to be called Real Estate Serial.
Real Estate Serial.
Yep. So what you're going to find is we're going to talk about real estate. We're going to talk about lending. We're going to talk about how they intertwine and all the different aspects of it for people, make it sort of educational. And then also one of the things that we both like to do is bring in people from the outside. Yeah, real estate related, but we also like to talk to people in totally different industries and their experience. And so, we feel like we're not just going to be eating out of the same box of cereal every time.
Right.
It's not going to just be Wheaties where it's just cornflakes every time. No, we're going to switch it up. One day it's going to be Fruity Pebbles. The next time it's going to be Captain Crunch. And then Captain Crunch with Crunch Berries. It's
There you
going to
go.
be different. It's going to be different. So
Keeping it fresh.
Yeah. Keep it fresh, and we're both excited about it, and get back to what we like doing.
Yeah. We had a lot of fun with it. We did it before. And one of the things that we always come back to is we're never without content.
Yeah.
There is always something newsworthy about real estate or lending that comes up. And, you get 10,000 spins on it.
Yeah, of course.
If you look online. For example, right now there's no shortage about house prices falling, potential real estate crash, etc. And we're all sitting here, at least in the Midwest, saying, hey, we're not seeing it. We're still seeing multiple offers. Prices are staying supported because supply and demand still counts.
Yeah.
And so, we like to use the podcast as kind of a format just to kind of put some things in plain English, practical standpoint, what consumers are seeing and what they can expect.
Absolutely, and that's the most important thing is getting valuable, honest content out there, right? Because there's so much stuff out, like you said, that's just really clickbait because they need to fatten their bottom line. So what kind of motivated you guys, because I know you had started it, what kind of motivated you guys to jump back into it?
I think we both kind of missed the collaboration that we have, and we were told by a number of people, including other realtors that Tony knows, people that I know, that they found the content valuable and useful and really topical for current, I guess is what the word I was looking for, really current for what was going on, and so and we enjoyed doing it. It's just life catches up to you sometimes, and he had things going on, I had things going on, and then just this whole thing has changed. I mean, look at your setup.
Yeah, I know.
This is all you.
Yeah.
2 years ago, we had a production team that we hired with editors, and they set everything up and filmed it and clipped it and posted it and did all that stuff for us. And just in talking with you over the last 3 months.
Yeah.
We've been talking about getting this podcast up and running again. It's just, we don't need that anymore. We don't need to spend that kind of money. We can do this ourselves, and it's not as difficult to upload and trim, and just you and I spending time with my two left hands trying to figure out how to edit videos and plug stuff in and splice and everything else. It's a little challenging for me, but I see that I can learn it, and it's not going to take me days to do it. So it was really through those conversations that we had that I think both of us realized, man, we don't have to spend thousands of dollars a month anymore to produce this thing and get it online. We can do it ourselves for much cheaper. And then the only thing we have to really worry about is, really lugging this stuff to where we're going to set up and shoot it, and then content.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one of the other things that we ran into before was just scheduling coordination. When we were using a production company, we were limited to, this is your place, this is your time, and that's that. And that was okay, but it just made it more challenging for us to keep consistent content coming out. And now, John, like you said, we can set up wherever we can find a brightly lit room and go from there. And that's important, because the news and the topics come out at light speed. And, when it's appropriate, we like to be able to respond with, like I said before, kind of a practical explanation of what the news might mean.
Absolutely. If you wouldn't mind just kind of angling that a little bit towards you. Here,
You got it.
Just to make sure you get you. All right.
Like that? Okay. Mm-hmm.
So how do people find you? Where you at? Where's your stuff going to be?
We're going to be on YouTube. We're going to be back on Facebook. It'll be on. We'll share snippets on each of our individual pages.
Okay.
Clips so people can find us on social media, on our different mediums: Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Facebook.
Okay.
They'll be able to find clips there, and then it'll all point back to our YouTube pages. Do you have a YouTube page yet?
No.
Okay.
No.
He will.
He will.
Have
I
a good
will.
one.
Yeah.
He will have a YouTube page soon, but we'll have the YouTube page for the podcast, and then I'll link it to my page. He'll link it to his page, and then the clips we'll do as well. So that's how we're going to get it out there. And I know viewed our old page and said, "Holy shit, you guys got some following."
Yes.
Said, we. I didn't realize it, and went back and looked. I'm like, yeah, we kind of did, didn't we? Yeah. So that was kind of fun, but it just sort of reassured us both that people actually found what we were talking about useful. So that was cool. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's the other thing, because everyone should be doing some sort of content. I don't care if you got a phone on a tripod. Who cares? Just get something out there, because I know we've been talking about it, and he had mentioned to me that they had a previous podcast. So I look up his stuff and I'm like, dude, you get thousands of views on this stuff and it's good quality content. Why did you stop? But that's with really anything. It's just that consistency. You have to be consistent with it. Otherwise, you're not really giving yourself a fair chance.
Yeah, agreed. So we're pretty excited about getting started again. I think we have all the equipment and everything in place
we
now.
Do.
So now it's just a matter of we got to create Frankenstein's monster for the first time, putting it all together and making sure it all works.
Dude, this is Frankenstein's monster. I was telling them, I had it set up completely different this morning, and then I'm like, this is stupid. We're too bunched together. So I flipped everything around this morning and had it set up right for them to get here, but you got to make sure it looks good, right?
Yeah, and I appreciate you spreading this out, too. Because
I didn't want you on top.
Can you imagine me and then Tony and then you? Yeah. We look...
Oh yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
The other thing I want to bring up, because we had a call a couple days ago, and I think it's a great topic to touch on, because I know it relates to literally all agents and mortgage brokers too, because you got to call people too, is that kind of share about what we talked about and what you're running into regarding, you're making a bunch of conversations but not quite getting the results that we wanted, and that was due to the content, the conversation you were having.
Yeah, and I think you can relate to this. I think you and I are very similar in that we both enjoy helping our friends and family and past clients and other people that we come across and have conversations with. And a lot of the time, we just expect that, well, when they need us, because we're there, they're going to call us.
Yeah.
And what Alex and I talked about is he's like, do you ask for the business?
Yeah.
I said, I guess I really don't.
Yeah.
I guess I really don't. I guess there's an expectation there, but I guess I really don't ask for it. What was the line you said? I'm like, I got to write that down.
The answer is always no,
Unless you
ask.
I like that.
That's it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And you can relate to that on the mortgage side of things, I'm sure.
Yeah, and it's almost a cliche thing in both our industries. You run into a past client in the grocery store when you're out. Hey, how you doing? Holy cow, my friend just bought a house. I forgot that you were in the business. And we've run into that from time to time. Our first reaction is to get mad at the individual.
Of course.
But the reality is,
It's on us.
we got to look at us.
Yep.
Yeah, it's on us to remind them, hey, this is what I do. We're not in the sexiest, most exciting business, and so we're not always top of mind for folks.
Speak
And
for
so,
yourself. Real estate's
Yeah,
pretty
I'm on the
sexy.
lending
Suave
side,
over
yeah.
here too. So we're hearing a lot of interest rates. Buyers are kind of keep asking about it. So you, as a mortgage broker, what are you kind of seeing, and what do you think for the rest of the year? What do you think we're going to be looking at?
Yeah. So the Wall Street pundits are suggesting that we're going to see rates to continue to moderate and maybe even decline somewhat from where we're at. It was a brutal sticker shock at the end of
Yes.
last year,
Yeah.
And folks are, of course, in many ways, legitimately concluding rates are really high right now. Well, they're not. They're just high relative to where we were last year.
Yeah.
And that was an artificially created situation. We're short of another global incident
Yeah.
that lasts for years. We're not going to see the 2% and 3% rates. And we shared a chart across the company not too long ago about historic interest rates. We're sitting quite good when you look over the last handful of decades.
Yeah.
And there were periods of time. So right now we're in the low sixes, let's just say broadly, on a 30-year fixed rate loan. There were a lot of times historically in our industry when we would have jumped up and down
Yeah.
at the news that rates were in the low
Yeah.
sixes. So it definitely is not a prohibitive time to be buying right now.
Well, yeah, based on what I looked at, the average 50 years interest rate over the last 50 years was around 7-8%, right?
Yeah.
So we're still even below that, but like you said, in the context, because they were keeping those interest rates low artificially, it's sticker shock, but in reality, we're pretty average.
Yeah, and what adds to the sting, and John, you can certainly comment this on too, when you couple the fact that nobody decides to buy a house on a Monday and buys it on a Tuesday,
Right.
There's a timeline.
Right.
And so for those that got into the search when rates were lower, there's kind of a double sting because, as we said earlier, prices haven't fallen either. So
Yeah.
you do have higher interest rates compared to the end of last year, and prices are remaining at least buoyed. They're not rising at the same clip that they were, but they're certainly not falling. And so that makes it expensive for many folks to jump into the home buying experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or at least looking for a little bit less, moderating. It's interesting is you and I have had conversations in the past about even when interest rates were low, you'd pre-approve somebody for $400,000. They say, well, I don't want my payment to be that, so I'm not going over $325.
Yeah.
And these are younger buyers, and you and I would just talk about, a lot of these younger buyers have a budget in mind, and they're going to stay within that. And I find that admirable that they've set a budget. They're not going to push the limits every time. Now, do you come across some that say, I want to stay here, and then they see what they get for their money and say, let's hedge that up some.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
But I really find it admirable that a lot of the buyers are approved for this much but want to stay here. And maybe that's a little less so because interest rates are higher. So maybe finding buyers are willing to maybe press up against that cap a little bit, just because their buying power isn't as much with the higher interest rates. But that still hasn't deterred them from buying because the thought is, what are interest rates going to do? They may go up. They may sink
Sure.
down sometime in the next 30 years. So if I have a 30-year mortgage at 6.5%, why can't I refinance in 5 years?
Yeah.
7
Absolutely.
years,
Yeah.
10 years.
Yeah.
Of course I can.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right now, first-time home buyers make up such a big segment of the market. And John, I agree. By and large, they're making prudent decisions, and they don't want to be house poor. They don't want to overbuy. We just have to help them reset expectations because the math has moved out from under all of us, really. But when doesn't that happen? Yes, we saw a severe change in rates from last quarter of last year to now, but they never remain stagnant forever. It's always an exercise in just kind of keeping your eye on the ball where it is, and you're going to pay for a roof over your head in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, absolutely.
And without a doubt, if you go back to financial advice 1-on-1, time counts, and so the sooner you start, the better you're going to have a benefit down the road.
Yeah.
Whereas if I'm going to wait a year and save some more money, I'm going to wait 2 years and save some more money, it's really hard to save at a pace that will keep pace with price increases, and then you've got the variable. You don't know where interest rates are going to be in a year or two or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's a false step, in my opinion, not for all, but for many, to say I'm just going to wait a year and then see where things stand.
Well, a lot of it, you both hit on it, is the managing expectations, right? Because if you just deal with the buyer that has a sticker shock still and say, yeah, I'm going to wait till rates go down to 2 to 3% again, that ain't going to happen, right? Mm-hmm. The same people who said, well, I'm going to wait till rates go down were the same people a couple years ago that were saying, well, I'm going to wait till the market crashes.
Yeah.
Right.
It ain't going to happen.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
So, yeah, the market's going to fluctuate, and we are due for a correction, but that doesn't mean it's going to freaking just fall off a cliff.
Right.
Absolutely. So
you ever read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad?
I've read it probably 4 times.
Yeah, you read it too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Man, I don't know what that guy's on. Every time I read something from that guy, he's talking about the market is going to blow up. It's a bubble. Start moving all your money out of houses and stocks and put it in gold. I'm like, I don't know what happened to that guy.
Bad news sells.
Ayahuasca? What happened?
Well, that plus, it's clickbait too, but he's all about, don't invest in derivatives, fiat currency, put your money in real estate. But at the same time, that's his whole brand. So, of course, he wants to continue to improve that and increase sales. So that's just part of it. That's with everything, right? That's why you got to be skeptical and perceptive on where the information comes from, because some people have a vested interest in the information they're giving you because it benefits them, not because it benefits you.
Mm-hmm.
That's true.
Yeah.
Dave Ramsey is the one, right, who says don't take a mortgage.
Yeah.
Pay it off quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting. So you've got different avenues of information that come at you as a buyer, come at you as a seller, and so it's just being able to figure out where things are and talk to a professional and get their opinion, who have their finger on the pulse of the market, what's happening out there. It's interesting. The questions you get asked all the time. Hey, how's the market? What's happening?
Yeah.
What's happening out there?
Yeah.
Are things really in the toilet like I hear they are? No, they're not.
Mm-mm.
What's happening out there? Is there are buyers dried up? Is inventory increasing? No, it's actually the opposite, man.
Yeah.
We don't have much inventory at all. And in fact, there's more buyers than houses still, and there's multiple offers on it. Now, don't get me wrong. You can look in the MLS and find a house that's been on the market for 300 days.
Yeah.
But that thing's either a teardown or it's way overpriced, and they've got it priced at the make me move level, right? Come in and make me a ridiculous offer and force me to move and leave my house.
Well, that's the other thing too, is because you can cherry pick any stat and make it, a clickbait headline, right? So, for example, the inventory is a great one because if you look at inventory year over year, it's up about 30 to 40%. But that means it's only up from like 1.2 months to like 1.7 months.
That's right.
So we're still less than 2 months of inventory. But if you just cherry pick that 30 to 40% increase, it seems monumental. But in reality, we went up from like nothing to like almost nothing. So
Right.
you got to keep in mind of where the information is coming from.
Yeah, going from 1 to 2 is 100% increase, isn't
Right.
it? So you got to take it for what it's worth.
Exactly.
Average days on market went from 3 days to 10.
I know.
That's
I know.
300% increase.
Yeah, market's crashing.
Market's
right?
crashing.
Well, that's the other thing, too, is because agents who haven't been in the business for the last 10, 15 years, they're not accustomed to seeing that. That's a balanced, normal market, which is good for both buyer and seller. That way, the buyer doesn't have to, go 15,000, 20,000, 30,000 over ask, waive their inspection appraisal, give up their kidney just to get a house. And that way, when the seller sells and buys, they can also come up with a more balanced purchase price and not have just chaos left and right.
Yeah, you just touched on it too. The part of the problem, one of the contributing factors to a lack of inventory is, and I'm having these conversations with a couple of different sellers currently, is they know they want to sell, they know they want to move, but they don't have the financial wherewithal to be able to just buy their next house without selling their other house first. So, but they don't want to sell their house because they don't want to be homeless.
Right.
They don't want to have to move twice.
Right.
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 So it's the catch-22 of, I want to put my house on the market, but I'm afraid because what if my house sells and I can't find my next house? So maybe we'll just stay put. I won't sell right now. Maybe I'll just wait until the market evens out a little. So you've got a bunch of people who are kind of sitting on the sidelines saying, just not going to sell right now. And then you have the other people that you have to have that rough conversation with, which is, yeah, we're going to list your house and we'll do our best to try and keep you in there for, maybe 120 days is the most. It's 4 months.
Yeah.
4 months we can try and keep you, before you have to move. But it's a scary predicament because, right, there's a chance you may have to rent a place and may have to put your stuff in storage. There's that chance. And then there's the flip side, which I think is, I don't know, it's emotionally, I think, a little bit more harmful. I had this client who, they loved their house. They loved where they lived. They lived in Berkeley, and you know who I'm talking about.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Found a house in Berkeley that they loved. Had everything they wanted, was as big as they wanted. We went over, we put an offer in, but it had to be contingent on the sale of their home. They just didn't want to pull money and do all those, move here from there. So they wanted to sell their house first. So we rushed, got their house on the market, and within 3 days, 48 hours, buddy, we got another offer.
Yeah.
48 hours to remove it and move forward, or else. So we lost out, and of course they were heartbroken. So they're like, we don't want to move anymore.
Yeah, right.
So they pulled their house off the market.
Jeez.
And then, I kid you not, they're like, we're done looking. 8 months later, they said, now we have to move.
Oh, God.
What's going on? We're expecting our third child. We don't fit in our house anymore.
We need more space.
Have to move.
Yeah.
So we found another house, had to make it contingent, got accepted. Same thing. A week later, 48-hour notice. Remove the contingency or else. Couldn't remove it because the house was on the market. So,
jeez,
lost another one. So that was 2 times, and then, finally they realized they had to change directions and start looking outside of the area they wanted to be in and start looking at other areas where newer construction and larger homes were being built. So we found one for them, and it eventually worked out. But it was just that. And I said to them too. I said, the good thing, guys, is that you have phenomenal taste because every one that you want, somebody else comes in after you and says, I want it more.
Yeah, get out, right? Get out in 2 days.
Get out in 2 days.
So I mean, but that's, everyone keeps asking is, if the market's doing so great, then why do we have such low inventory? But you hit it right in the head, because sellers don't want to sell because they're fearful of not wanting to buy, not being able to buy anything. And then you have the big buyer pool, which is just sitting there saying, yeah, I'm going to wait till rates go down. So it's like, those are both sides of the coin, which is why we're still less than 2 months of inventory and we need more homes to sell.
Yeah. That's part of it. Also part of it is, you're a owner. You've been in your house 25 years. You've paid off your mortgage.
Yeah.
You're an empty nester. You've got a 3,000 square foot house. The kids are gone. Your bedroom's on the main floor. You don't even go upstairs anymore. So you're paying all this money to heat this big house. But at the end of the day, you're like, yeah, but if I sell my house for this, I'm going to have to spend at least that much to get a smaller house and a one floor. And my taxes are going to be higher.
Yeah.
So I would be stupid to move right now with interest rates where they are. Or I have a 3% interest rate now. I bought in the last 5 or 7 years.
Yeah.
Why would I move now?
Right.
I'll just stay where I'm at.
Right.
So you got all these factors, and it's interesting. In California, they have a one-time exemption for somebody over the age of 50 that allows them to take their property tax base wherever they are and move it to their next house. Now, I don't think it's the entire state. There's certain counties that allow that, Los Angeles being one of them. If you stay within Los Angeles County or move to another county, you take that tax base that you had and apply it to your new house. So even if you're spending way more than you bought that house for, you get to keep that tax base. And so it's an incentive to it's not a high bar to crawl over to say, well, crap, if I'm going to spend $500,000, my taxes are going to be ridiculous. They're going to be 10 grand, 12 grand, 15 grand on this house, whereas I'm leaving a tax base of like $4,500. That's a big hit. That's a big nut to swallow. So I don't know what the answer is, but gosh, if we could incentivize sellers to hey, one-time exemption, as long as you're buying in Michigan still and you're going to stay here, and you're going to be your principal residence, those have to be the caveats.
Yeah.
This is going to be your principal residence.
Right.
Then, hey, take your tax base with you.
Yeah.
That would just make too much sense to do, though.
There's always some degree of underlying chatter about buyer incentives. Let's get that buyer incented. And to your point, the buyers are already incented and they're there. They're lined up. We need some degree of seller incentive. What that looks like, I don't know. You brought up some really good points, John, and I think the underlying message is there's a lot of complexities that are existing in the market right now.
Yeah.
And I think the real risk is to not have the conversation. If you're a consumer, and some consumers are content. They're fine. They don't want to move. Well, fine. That is. But if there's a need, if there's a family size change or whatever, have the conversation with somebody like yourself, because you just never know what the transaction is going to look like. You talked about some tough love situations where folks lost the house because of contingencies, but you never really know what a seller's circumstance is. A buyer might be writing that contingent offer, and if the seller has not found their next home, they may welcome the idea that there's going to be some wait because they need some time. So the point is, at least have the conversation. Take a pulse as to what's going on. You don't know until you try. And inaction, in my view, is really the big risk.
And you've probably seen this. One of the things that you do see from time to time, and it's always, as a buyer agent, with your buyer agent hat on, it's always, do you want to go near that?
Right.
But as a listing agent, I mean, it's kind of clever. It's a way to get somebody to list their home, right? To put that little caveat underneath private agent remarks. Sale contingent on seller finding home of choice, known to agent, which means you haven't found the house yet. You're going to start looking once we get an accepted buyer offer. That's always a little scary, right? Because there's a chance they may not find a home. You could be tied up for 60 days as a buyer agent. And then as a buyer agent, what do you tell your buyer? Okay, let's get the inspection done. Let's get the appraisal done. You can spend $1,000, and then we'll just sit for the next 45 days and hope that the seller finds a home.
Yeah,
it's not fair to your buyer because they're being held hostage, sort of too. And and sometimes when you don't have a very cooperative listing agent who's, hey man, we're going out to look at 8 homes today. Pretty excited about a couple of them. It's dead airwaves for 60 days.
Yeah.
You start to wonder, is that seller really looking? Have they given up? So that's always one that gives me pause when I see that in the agent remarks. But as a listing agent, I get it why you put it there. It's to get the listing and to get hey, look, no pressure on you sellers to settle for less. We'll find the one you want. Otherwise, you don't have to sell.
Yeah, and all that really starts and stems with initiating the conversation with both buyer and seller from the real estate side and the mortgage side, because if we don't, they don't know. But we're approaching about a half hour, so you guys want to wrap up?
Let's just keep rolling, man.
We can talk all day, right?
We really could talk.
We've been off the air for a few years, so.
Is there anything else that you wanted to cover?
No, I think with the big interest rate was one. I'm glad you brought that up, and everything else we hit, I'm good with. So unless you guys got anything else, throw anything else out there you want to throw out there.
Why don't you? We talked about it just before we jumped on. Why don't you just talk for a second about the $25,000 incentive that Detroit just announced yesterday? Now, it didn't sound to me like any of those buyers, and obviously there's going to be income requirements
Right.
and residency requirements and all these other things. You can't. One of the things I heard was you couldn't have owned a home in the last 3 years, or purchased a home in the last 3 years. So there's going to be those requirements, and obviously it's going to be given to lower income people. But isn't that the catch-22? You have to earn a certain amount of money, but yet, how can you buy a home if you don't make a certain amount of money? Even the money they're going to give you is going to help, but how do you afford to make those payments? And are you required to go through any classes on financial planning? And excuse me, are we going to just be in another situation like Nehemiah was one, right? What was the other one? These old these were programs that were designed specifically for people who didn't have a lot of money for down payment, paid their bills, did everything right, but just could never save enough money because of kids, whatever, rent, everything else. So the Nehemiah program existed to give cash down payment to a buyer to help them. And this is what, 04, 05,
Yes,
06,
pre-recession.
right around there, just pre-recession, pre-bubble. And one of the things that happened that they noticed is quite a number of those people who didn't have any of their own money in the game when things got tight and the economy got tight and the real estate market went in the toilet, those people just walked away because like, I didn't have any money in this.
Right.
I didn't put 10 grand in my own cash or 80 grand in my own cash in this house. It's all given to me.
So there's a program now or something like that?
Yeah, it's very new. Like John said, it's a $25,000 incentive, which is substantial. To help spur home ownership in the city of Detroit. There's always a fine line with these programs because while kudos to Detroit for looking to do those things, they've really made great strides over the last, say, 10 years or so. But when that incentive gets to the point where now people are closing on a home that they're really not financially prepared to do so, we get in the situation that you described. That person recognizes at some point in time down the line, gee, I wasn't ready for this, but I've got nothing in it. So why don't I just walk away? So and that's not to throw shade on the program.
No, don't mean to do
hopefully
that.
it'll do the intended the intended result. But there is track record, like you said, of when the programs get too aggressive. Folks are getting into home ownership when they're not truly prepared. The home ownership education programs, there is statistics to show that those help and they minimize default. But we always want to tread carefully with those sort of situations when it helps a homeowner that is truly ready to go, but they just need that boost, then great. But when it takes somebody who is not financially set up or geared to be a homeowner, it makes them a homeowner, it becomes a problem.
Yeah.
So, I probably see more good than bad, but the programs are it's not always a good story that are tied with those programs.
Of course, with everything else, right?
Yeah.
So, well, that's it, guys. I mean, I thank you for coming here and sharing your wisdom and talking. It was awesome.
Yeah.
Check out their stuff. When's your first episode going to be up?
Come
on, man.
Late next week. Let's just say. You want to say
Whoa.
that?
He's committed now. They're committed on camera
I thought
to
that's
all
what
of
we
you.
talked about.
He said late next week. So be on the lookout for their YouTube stuff.
Be on the lookout for real estate cereal coming soon to a box.
Cereal box. near you.
Cereal box near you, right?
Yeah, next week. We might be sitting in a car holding a phone.
Real estate
next week.
cereal coming soon to you guys. Check out their stuff. It's going to be awesome. And thanks for being here. So it was fun.
Thanks,
Thanks, Alex.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was
See you
good.
guys.